Hi everybody, it's Chris Frame here and welcome to the Cunard Queen Elizabeth. This voyage was taken in March of 2019 and it was my opportunity to have a look at the changes that were made to the ship following her 2018 refit. So let's go aboard. Now, one of the first places you might notice changes from the 2018 refit is in the ship's grand lobby. It's mostly aesthetic changes around the carpeting of this area, and this spans across all three decks, Deck 1, Deck 2 and Deck 3. So you can see here the Deck 3 level, we're now walking through what is the midship spa, and you'll notice that the carpeting and window dressings have been modified during that refit. Otherwise, the rest of the space looks relatively similar to how it did before the ship went in for her refurbishment. You can see that the design of Queen Elizabeth was designed to have that Art Deco style, with some of the fixtures and fittings being reminiscent of those found on the original Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary. Now, walking down one of the stairways, and you can see here that the carpeting has also been changed on the ship's stairways, and the stairway landings have these vibrant carpets that really do brighten up the lift lobbies and the space around the ship. The colours are reminiscent for what was used on board the Queen Mary 2 and her new carpeting, although her starburst design is quite different to the design used on Queen Elizabeth. You'll also notice that the carpeting in the passenger corridors has also been changed. It's blue on both the port and starboard side, and you can see it there looking down the deck. Now, during this voyage we sailed to Tasmania and back, pulled in at the port of Hobart, and there we saw the Pacific Eden, who was making one of her final voyages before moving from P&O Australia to become a cruise ship with CMV. Queen Elizabeth spent the day alongside in Hobart before setting sail once again. Whilst in Hobart we also got some great views of the ship, which towered over the city. And you can also see in that imagery there that they were doing lifeboat practice with the crew. So here we are on Deck 1 on the A stairway. This is the entrance area to the Royal Court Theatre, and you can notice here in the theatre very little changes have occurred, some tidying up of the bulkheads and flooring, but otherwise the space looks the same as it did before the refit. This is a very popular area. It's where the lecture program is hosted, as well as the evening shows, and there are other events that are also hosted in the Royal Court Theatre, including cooking demonstrations. The theatre has all these fantastic little corridors and staircases that lead down to the boxes, and along with Queen Victoria was one of the first two ships to have box seating in the theatre. On formal nights they make a big deal out of this, where you can reserve a box and get champagne and chocolate coated strawberries delivered to your box. So here we are in the library on the Deck 3 level, and the library on the Queen Elizabeth is 2 stories, and there's a spiral staircase in the middle that links the 2 decks. You can see here that the carpeting's been updated in the latest refit, but otherwise the library looks exactly the same as it did before the refit. It's a similar design to that used on the Queen Victoria, and also reminiscent to the library space on board Queen Mary 2 and QE 2, with over 6,000 books and the wooden panelling on the walls, giving the area a very rich feel. The second port of call on this voyage was Port Arthur in Tasmania, and here the Queen Elizabeth tendered. The tender service was efficiently run, and you can see one of the tender boats there making its way across to Port Arthur with Queen Elizabeth anchored in the bay. During the refit, the shop managers on Queen Elizabeth were changed, and Durfee now look after the shops on board Queen Elizabeth. They were involved in the refit and made some alterations, including the addition of the port shop on Deck 2, just outside the Queen's Room. This is where you can find branded goods, Queen Elizabeth memorabilia, as well as chocolates if you want that extra snack. Just outside from here there's a collection of Cunard memorabilia, which is branded under the name of Cunardia. It focuses on the history of the Queen Elizabeths, the original, QE2, and the current Queen Elizabeth. And this is just a view from the aft of Deck 9. Now, one of the most popular rooms on board the ship is actually the laundry, and here you can find washing machines, dryers and irons. This is a look at the Golden Lion pub, which is the Queen Elizabeth's take on a classic English pub. The major change here was in the carpeting, with this new vibrant carpet installed, which brightened up the entire space. Just having another look here at the corridor carpeting and the carpets in the lift lobby on deck 9. Walking through, you can see that the carpet changes extended throughout the ship's corridors as well, and also into the Lido, where the carpeting was also updated during the refit. The Lido is the popular alternate dining venue. It's a buffet setup, and you can just see some of the selection in this footage here. This was taken late at night, so it's towards the end of the dinner service. So do you prefer the formal dining rooms or the alternate dining room, al fresco dining room on board cruise ships that you sail on? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, we couldn't leave without checking out the desserts as well. The aft end of deck 9 by the adults only swimming pool has been renovated to include this new lighting system, which gives a great ambience in the evenings. Now, this was taken in the early hours of the morning, so before any passengers were awake, and as a result of that, it's quite empty. But at night time, when the band is playing, that gives a nice ambience in that area. And then here we are in the card room, which is also on deck 3 of Queen Elizabeth, and you can see here the carpeting and reupholstered chairs in this area. Now, one of the largest changes in the shop areas was in the bookshop on board the ship. New operator has made some changes to the design and layout. You can see here a selection of our books on the bookshelf, which of course makes me very happy. But also they've got a new pop-out table there for latest new books that have come on board the ship, and also a selection of cards, gifts and trinkets for you to take home from your cruise. This is the art gallery on board the ship, and again it's been just refreshed during the refit. The dark coloured ceiling and dark coloured floor with the lighting installation there give it a very modern feel and make it appear very spacious, despite being basically a corridor that is connecting both parts of the ship up with the Queen's Room. Coming through to the Queen's Room, this area looks very familiar to anybody who's travelled on board Queen Elizabeth. The decor and design remains the same following the refit. The Queen's Room is popular for after dinner dancing and also the traditional Cunard afternoon tea. Staying on deck 3, and here are the main shops, and you can see that they've been brightened and refreshed during the refit with new window installations and also brighter colours inside the actual shops. This whole area is called the Royal Arcade, and it's popular on board the ship for people who are looking for gifts, souvenirs and memorabilia from their voyage. The staircase there links the shopping area with the lower level, where you'll find the Golden Lion pub and also the ship's casino. Some of the main focal points of the ship have remained the same, such as that large carpet between the lifts there, but you'll notice that the forward A stairway has new carpeting on its staircase. This is just a view of the officers on board. Every time a new officer or captain comes on board the ship, they update the photographs. Now, Queen Elizabeth's Cafe Carinthia has received some alterations of its own. It's got new carpeting, reupholstered furniture, but unlike on Queen Victoria, where it was renamed the Chart Room, on Queen Elizabeth it remains as Cafe Carinthia, which of course makes for a nice differentiation between the two ships. It's a very popular area for after dinner drinks as well as coffee throughout the day, and they have a barista in this area as well. And all of that coffee and alcoholic drinks comes from the bar area at the aft end of Cafe Carinthia. And those who have travelled on Queen Victoria will notice that the carpet has a similar design to the carpets used in the chart room on board Queen Victoria. Now heading to the aft end of the ship, and the Britannia Restaurant has also been treated to some changes during the refit, including the spectacular new carpets that have been put into both levels of the restaurant. It really adds a sense of richness to the space and adds to the already very pleasing design, which has an Art Deco theme about it. This imagery here is just showing you what that looks like on the upper level when you get an up-close view as walking down past the tables. Staying with the restaurants and now heading to the top of the ship, and this is looking at from the lobby of the Queen's and Princess Grill restaurants into their exclusive lounge. And inside both the Princess and Queen's Grill restaurants there has been updates to the carpeting, and soft furnishings have been changed slightly since the ship went in for its refit. And you can also just see the quality and the style of this restaurant in terms of the setup and the way that the tables are laid out. And it's early in the morning, so they're preparing the tables for breakfast as the ship was alongside in Sydney. A few other areas of the ship that I wanted to show you, some photographs of different changes. You'll notice the pavilion pool has got new tiles surrounding the pool. They're darker and add a bit of extra definition to the area. And also the ship's spa operator has been changed during the refit, with Mareel now operating the spa on board Queen Elizabeth and also Queen Victoria. Now, no tour of a Cunard Queen would be complete without showing you the cabins. This is a standard inside cabin, and you can see that there's been some changes in terms of the decor, with the dark blue and gold trim added to the beds and the new carpeting on the floors. Here we can see a standard outside cabin. This one's got a window. You'll also notice the same colour scheme here and the carpet in more detail. The carpet pattern is similar to that in the corridors, but as you can see, the carpet colours are quite different. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick walk around of Queen Elizabeth to check out some of the refit changes. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks once again for watching. See you on board.